Hey, it's John O'Brien with Apogee live here at Georgia Southern with the esteemed Rob Swift. Rob, how you doing?
Doing really well.
Great. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely great to see you.
So what's new in Statesboro and Georgia Southern?
Well, Georgia Southern, it's summer. We're about 30 days away from move-in from fall semester.
Exciting
that, of course,
time.
is a huge deal for us, the residence halls, seeing parents come, children come, the emotions that are involved, from all aspects of moving their children in and then leaving, and for most of them the first time.
Well, for summertime, the campus seems absolutely electric.
It does, yeah. We have a record enrollment this summer, so a really big summer. A lot of it online, of course.
Tell us a little bit about your role here at Georgia Southern. I know it's changed quite a bit over the years that I've known you.
Started here 15 years ago with housing in maintenance, believe it or not, changing air filters.
Okay.
And kind of slowly worked my way up in maintenance. Became a low voltage electrician and became a tradesperson in maintenance. And those opportunities are really what got me into IT, cable TV, our surveillance systems. And worked my way up to where now my role actually is being our data center manager.
Congratulations. Talk about climbing the ladder in such a great place.
It is a great place for being able to grow myself and grow others, as we like to say here at Georgia Southern.
Very well done. Well, what would you like folks to know about Georgia Southern and the Statesboro area?
For me, what I think I'm most proud of with Georgia Southern, what still gets me really excited and makes my job feel like one of those things where it's greater than the sum of its parts, is how we can transform young students into adults who go out and live fulfilling lives, both from their personally and professionally. And that I think Georgia Southern's really doing a great job in a difficult higher education climate to stay relevant, to have programs that when you come to Georgia Southern, you leave with skills to go get a job immediately, whether it's our construction management or manufacturing engineering or IT or nursing and medical skills. We have a great business school. So much of that is really applies to what the labor market needs.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, Georgia Southern in general has just done a tremendous job adapting to the marketplace. And of course, you've got the campus now in Savannah as well, formerly Armstrong Atlantic.
Yes.
And so everything is fully integrated and merged together.
Right, growing that base and scaling to a point to more meet the region's needs than just Statesboro or a smaller area.
Fantastic. So let's narrow our conversation a bit to
Sure.
your role within IT. What are you seeing as some of the challenges facing the IT team today?
A big part of it, of course, is talent, keeping the people on board to be able to provide the services that we need to provide. It's a big school, 25,000 plus students, hundreds of buildings, right? The 3 campuses, as we mentioned. And some of those, and as the technology needs grow, and we've talked about in the past, not in a linear way, but in an exponential way, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's a challenge plaguing most collegiate IT teams, just
Sure.
to keep up with the student expectations, their demands, the changing classroom, right? So it's taxing on those IT teams.
Changing classroom and changing residential environments, which of course is a big part of what we're.
So you must have start the year, I would imagine, with priorities and initiatives in the department. What are some of the top things that you and the team are working on here?
Everything at Georgia Southern always falls under this umbrella of student success. That of course is the core part of what we're here to do. And student success in an IT standpoint, especially because we touch almost every aspect. So many things ride on the network today and rely on that. Keeping the systems up, staying up with the times, having efficient systems. That's a big part of where we're heading, is trying to take some of the older labor intensive or ways and automating them,
Sure.
making them streamlined. So not only does it make Georgia Southern more efficient, but actually lets us provide better customer service. we're seeing a change in the service expectations of people from the old-fashioned maybe hand-holding and a smiling face to they want more self-service and more just I'm going to go online and find the answer and get it done and be on my way. So that's part of how it's evolving.
Changing to the needs of your customers, and I think you guys have always done a great job with that. We hear a lot in the marketplace about IT talent, talent gaps, skills gaps, and the great resignation. How has that affected Georgia Southern and your team, your IT team, and what are you doing about it?
We've had those challenges. We've seen people leave for other opportunities. Post-COVID, the world has changed. There's more of an expectation for flexibility and working from home, and which we've worked on. We have ways that we certainly didn't 3 years ago to do those kinds of things. As far as answering the question, what are we doing about it? Really trying to concentrate on morale and some of the other aspects of work that aren't pay related, because working for the state is never going to be the highest pay option for someone. But there are other ways that it can be rewarding to work at Georgia Southern.
And it's noble work, as you said, to be really playing a critical role in the success of society, frankly.
I really believe that, and there are a lot of people at Georgia Southern that also believe that.
It's the why, right?
Right.
Why do you do what
successful.
you do? Yeah, that's great. And the IT leadership, I've always been incredibly impressed with your team and the group that leads you all day to day. So
we do. We have a good mix of people that have been here, been in the area for a long time, but also people that have come from other places.
So after many years of conversation, Georgia Southern obviously made the decision to partner with Apogee to bring the ResNet into your residence halls. What were some of the challenges that you were facing as a lead-in into partnering with us?
For a long time, our own culture was a challenge in that there was a lot of, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but a need or a want to keep it in-house. There's a pride aspect. We do our own IT support. We're not going to farm that out, and we're in control of our own destiny. So it took a little while to get beyond that. And to be honest, in some ways, it took a realization of failure to get to that point, and that this really is growing beyond what we can handle, and it's going to require help, a third party.
And how would you describe the student experience for your typical resident?
Prior, somewhat poor. We were reasonably good at providing an enterprise network for the campus, but that enterprise solution isn't necessarily what they are used to at home. So being in a dorm where you're on this enterprise network and no, you can't have this device and you can't have this device, and a lot of limitations, just really wasn't what they were looking for.
A list of what you can't bring, right?
Right, what you can't bring. Just the basics, complaints of connectivity, signal strength, just the minimums were a challenge to meet and stay on top of. So much less anything beyond that.
Yeah. So as you talk about building community here at Georgia Southern and bringing people together in this post-COVID era that we're in, how important is modernization of the connectivity in the ResNet?
I think it's incredibly important. We have this joke, air, water, Wi-Fi, right. Meaning what are the things that a student requires. Yes. And as we know, it's just an incredibly strong expectation. I've heard of surveys where a student said, well, I can go without water for a couple hours, but I can't go without the Wi-Fi.
Who needs a shower?
Right. So, to think of it as even more important than some of these others. But yeah, for the socialization, really for almost every aspect of today's life, that connectivity is a really important part.
Well, as you evaluated over many years, I'm sure, the idea of partnering and bringing in somebody who does this for a living, if you will, what were some of the criteria that you were looking for in a partner, and how did Apogee fill those needs for Georgia Southern?
They're all the standard things. Of course, you want a company that you think can actually do it, because it's not easy. We learned that lesson. You want a company that you think you can afford It has to fit into certain buckets that way. And then maybe as a little more of a refined aspect, you also want to know, and in the state environment where things are done based on contracts and putting out to bid, this is much harder to find, but to know that you'll have that fit and you won't have someone where you've signed a contract and well, now once the contract's signed, it's a fight for everything, and it's a difficult relationship. And we knew that was going to have to be a big part of it, that we couldn't end up with the lowest bidder that made our lives miserable.
Yeah, there's a risk play here, right? You talked earlier about the enterprise network, and we often talk about moving to a residential network and breaking apart from the enterprise eliminates some risk for central IT to not have tens of thousands of devices on the network, and the financial risk, right, of no surprises, and so having a contract that is predictable over time is attractive to a lot of folks. And so from the point that we agreed to move forward and you selected Apogee, tell me a little bit about your experience with the deployment and how things have gone in our first year here.
Deployment, of course, like moving in, part of that semester is a huge part of this. A giant job in a very compressed timeline. Hard deadlines, you just, no matter what the excuses, weather, other events, it can't be late. It has to be done by the time the kids come back. So that was challenging but rewarding at the same time. There was a lot of planning ahead of time. The choreography really worked. Obviously, you guys have done this before, and that really showed. There were a lot of people that said, well, it can't be done in that time. And it was.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And so far, welcomed by the students and appreciate the robust network that's in place today?
Definitely. So much better than what we were doing in the past. That definitely made that transition a lot easier.
You've embarked on a pretty significant project here at the campus, and we'll call it your ResNet lab,
Sure.
Where you've pulled together devices and really mirrored all the different types of devices and things that students are bringing to campus to just demonstrate to prospective students, their parents and families and existing students, how this technology can really work and create that at-home experience for them. Tell us a little bit about the project that you're working on.
I wanted to be able to take the kind of two-dimensional aspect of, well, just Wi-Fi, and does it work or does it not work, to what the experience really is like, because there is a story, there is a message to tell with that, in that the advantages of the personal area network, which is a feature that Apogee brings to this, really allows you to do more than just have it work. Now you actually have control of your devices kind of in the same way that you would at home. You can see all of your devices on an app. Your Amazon Alexa device can see the LED light that it's going to control, and your gaming system can see another system, where before on an enterprise network it all was kind of invisible to each other. And once again, give someone the kind of options that they had at home that we just didn't provide before.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the wireless printer, the Alexa, been hearing a lot about these emotion rocks.
Right.
All of these are now welcomed on the network.
Are now an option, right, where before it was just a hard no.
Prior to partnering, right, it was chasing tickets and
Sure.
concerns and questions around the wireless working or not working, right? And so as the university made the decision to bring in Apogee, what have you noticed from a workload perspective from your teammates?
My teammates, are still incredibly busy, but it did allow the networking team to go from being all hands on deck and not being able to do anything else during these move-ins or certain times of the year, to now that load is really off from that resident side of the load, that they can concentrate on the rest of campus and keeping the business side and the academic side up. So a huge difference.
Yeah.
From that standpoint.
And what have you noticed anything from a morale perspective?
I'd like to think so,
Yeah.
Especially because the kind of support, that expectation of at home, and then a parent gets involved, and it's so easy for little things like that to turn into something that's really time intensive and difficult to deal with.
That's a typical experience, frankly, where this what we do is hard, right? Providing this service to the residence halls where the expectations are great to provide an at-home experience. They want it to work like back at home, and on an enterprise network, that's difficult. And so I'm glad that you've realized that Apogee can make that part easy. You talked earlier about the pride of ownership and delivering the service up until the Apogee partnership. What did the process look like internally? Once the decision was made, all right, let's go out to the marketplace and see what folks can deliver. What did that process look like internally to get all the stakeholders aligned and moving in the same direction as far as specifications and all the things that you wanted to bring to campus?
From maybe a people and attitude perspective, it wasn't that hard. We actually already had a relationship with Apogee through cable TV and the video side of things, and knew other schools that had made this decision, and that helped a lot. So really by the time we got there, everyone was on board.
What was it about the Apogee service that just felt right for you?
We had a lot of very specific questions at the time. A lot of it was based around supply chain. And, really we put some very specific details in there to make you say, or make whoever the winning, person would be, to say, we can meet these timelines, supply chain will not be an issue, will not hamper us, and made that very clear. I'd say that, maybe stands out as one of the bigger ones at that time, because it was just such a huge piece of this.
Yeah. We have here on campus a technician who works and interfaces with our network operations center. He's an alum, which is a neat story in itself.
That is great.
Tell me a little bit about the work that he does, how he interfaces with you, with the IT team, and ultimately with the customers, the students.
That position is able to play a couple of different roles. Maybe first and foremost, the bread and butter is he's always here checking on things, making sure a small thing doesn't escalate into a bigger thing, and working with your engineers and the back home people to stay on top of things. So that's a huge element in itself. But then we get the advantage of that on-site person that we can have a relationship and get to know and call when something we really need some special attention, or students that have a special need. And he in particular is really good at working with students, gaming systems especially, kind of have some special tweaking sometimes to really make that student happy.
And that's a key thing we hear a lot. Like, can't you monitor your networks remotely? Yes, and we do. But there's also, when you're talking 30, 40,000 devices that these students are bringing to the residence halls, having that extra touch, right? Because every device is a little bit different, which makes his job fun and complicated all in one. But providing that touch is an important part of the Apogee service, and so I'm glad that your experience has been great. As other schools look to bring in third parties to offload the demands of the network onto a group like Apogee, what advice would you have for those schools pursuing that path?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that this is different than just ordering a case of paper, or and I'm not trying to oversimplify it.
Right?
Commodity, right? And so, and where I'm going with that is a lot of times we have this expectation of being able to call someone and say, all right, I know you can't give me an exact number, but give me a ballpark. I need this, with only you asking me a couple of questions. And this isn't that type of thing. And at least for me early on, that was something I had to learn, and that it is going to be more. It's not just a price thing, and it's not just can we meet the technology, but is this really going to work? Is it going to be a partnership? And that might sound a little cheesy and salesy, but in this case, that really was what made the difference, I think.
Well, there's a lot of companies that can provide the hardware, right? And there's a lot more to that, right? There's the installation and the schedule the aggressive schedule that you outlined, and maintaining that schedule, and then ultimately supporting it, right? with the field services and all of the back end knock and the folks that take care of your site each and every day. It's a lot of hands that touch the network, but many of which are unseen day to day.
And knowing that we're dealing with a company where this is their core business, higher ed is all they do.
I'm glad that your experience has been so great in its first year. If you could narrow it down to one or two things you appreciate most about the Apogee partnership, what would those things be?
I think first and foremost that it's not a contractual relationship. Of course it is a contractual relationship, but it doesn't feel like a contractual relationship. If I have a question or an idea, everyone I've worked with is open to hear it, not, that's not in the contract, and so many things at this level are. So for me, that's the most, and not to, it's a cliche, but it really is true. It's a partnership, and it feels like a partnership.
Yeah, that's great, thank you. Any parting advice for other schools like Georgia Southern that looking to solve similar challenges?
Talk to other schools, and in my experience, it was 100%. Everyone that we talked to said it's the best decision we ever made, and just didn't look back. So whatever your fears, may be of, why, if you are questioning this at all, feel better about that and move forward.
Well, this has been insightful, and certainly appreciate the partnership, and I'm glad that it feels like a partnership. That's certainly what we strive for day in and day out. You and your team are phenomenal to work with, and that's really what makes our work rewarding. When we talked earlier about our why, right? You're here to teach future leaders of our country and world, and we're here to provide an outlet for them to do that and be connected to the world. And so I'm so glad it's working, and really appreciate the partnership, Rob, and to all of your teammates here at Georgia Southern. Thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing to serve.
No, thank you, John. I really appreciate it.